You know what? I have to fix this. This is the Gooners podcast, but I played the wrong entry video. The new, improved Gooners podcast video goes live now. Did that not work?
It depends on what you were trying to do.
Yeah.
All right. So I edited. Man of no skills whatsoever, edited our entry video to throw in some Owen.
Yeah, there was Owen in there.
Okay. All right. So what I was worried about was because what I just saw for the last 30 seconds was a bunch of like choppy stuff. And I figured it was my internet, but I'm like, maybe it was I did something wrong with the thing. So you got the
yeah. I was actually doing
you got the shots with your deformed daughter, and then the and then the Irish dancing ones because I didn't see that on my end.
It was I was actually concerned about the videos I sent in private of me pissed up on New Year's Eve drinking alone. I thought that was going to make the cut, but thanks for not putting that in there, Mike.
Well, I know when you drink alone, you prefer to be by yourself.
I prefer to be naked. It was just on the one chance that I was fully clothed on that evening.
Well, I mean, you have to dress up because when it's New Year's Eve and your wife goes to bed at 9:30 in the evening, I mean, it's time to get yourself together.
Sorry, let me correct you there. I put her to bed. It's a bit different over here in Ireland. We're still sort of following suit. We're not as progressive as the rest of the world. So yeah, ladies to bed at 9:30.
Put her to bed. John, how you doing, man?
Oh, good,
dude.
Good.
It's a win cast. I've gotten to the point in my podcasting career where I we pod when we want to. At this point, look, I mean, like I've said, we're basically the Tuesday Club without the Tuesday or the club. So look, we're not going to always push out content, but when I'm happy, I tend to prefer to push out some content. So John, always lovely to have you after a win.
Yep.
You have some blood on your shirt. I would go off cam and clean that up if I were you.
Some West Brom blood.
West Brom blood and West Brom fan. Owen, how you watched the whole game today? How was it? Tell us about your experience because you started the 90 minutes as time sensitive as you could possibly be on a live watch along on Mr. Arsenal podcast, Ryan Fletcher's podcast, and you were killing it.
I was in good form. I was, and some tactical nous and tactical insight being thrown in, and then all of a sudden,
you were now CAF, dude.
It was just fucking throwing nous out there for everybody to see. But no, then as I said, we're a bit behind in Ireland, and the power grid in half the town decided to just give up. And then it came back on. I reckon the Spud fan, that's what I reckon must be in charge of Northern Ireland Electricity Board. So I missed out from about 25 minutes on, but lo and behold, as soon as my fucking power went out, gold started flying in. So maybe I should just give up watching the Arsenal for the benefit of the rest of us.
So your power went off when Arsenal's power went on.
Exactly. Coincidence or not?
So John, you're in Southern Florida, and I know that there's a lot of thunderstorms down there and a lot of crazy weather. Did you have power for the entire game today?
Had power for the whole game.
All right, and did you watch the game, or did you have something better to do today?
Every second of the game, I this was what I did. I'm an Arsenal fan, so I watched the whole game.
Right. I mean, like
as you do.
I have secondary and tertiary power supplies for this specific occasion, and why Owen doesn't share that. I thought we brought in. And then you even have like the podcast family that was dedicated to.
I even have like a big wooden wheel attached to like some power grid just in case it goes off.
I have a group of young teenage men who
Careful.
Yeah, we'll just end it there. All right, next topic.
This is the next podcast will just be John and Owen because I'll be in jail. Look, everybody probably would have predicted a win today, given our form, except for those of us that are scarred, let's say, because every time things seem to be going right, something goes wrong. And what I was personally worried about today was the health of David Luiz and William, and whether we would actually see some progressive, recognition from, if it were up to me, as far as those guys are concerned, it would be no William on the bench, no William in the team, no Luiz on the bench, no Luiz on the team. But look, I don't have that decision to make. So, but given that they were healthy, was it nice not to see them starting the game and see the people in good form get to continue, John?
Yes, yeah. And I saw on Twitter someone kind of pointed out the Mourinho quote about Ozil, that every time Ozil touches the ball, it smiles. And then it seems like every time Willian touches the ball, it seems to weep recently. And, there you go. Yeah, and it was good because when you really want to see these young players succeed, and we talked about how Europa League could be a cauldron for these youth players to actually make the step up, and it just took a manager who was able to, willing, and kind of needed to change things up and give them a chance. And we saw that happen with Saka. We saw that happen with Martinelli when Emery was the manager, and now we were hoping Arteta would see what we saw in these performances in Europa League, and just so happened that we needed these kind of players to play, and it worked out pretty well. And then when they did, I mean, look at Emile Smith-Rowe, man, what a step up that kid's made, and what a difference he made pulling strings in that midfield. This is that position, that kind of middle part of the pitch, right in front of the opposing in the final third. That area of space is one that we needed someone with some creativity and drive in, like that kind of like Ramsey, Wilshere, Ozil-esque kind of push.
And we've tried Willock there, and it just hasn't quite
didn't work.
No.
Didn't work. Yeah, and that's a great point. We've made a couple of, and then we even tried to like just avoid that area and just try to win everything on the wings, and that worked for a while when Aubameyang was scoring goals. But when he went dry, then it was like we have nothing. We get the ball to Pepe or Willian on the right, nothing's happening there. Hopefully Bellerin can put in a cross and someone can get on the end of it. Now we actually have this threat where you're having defenders having to come centrally, and it's opening up all this space for Tierney and Aubameyang and Saka on the right. And when you add the form that like Tierney and Saka are in, which are incredible right now, it's just really great to see. And we saw some beautiful football today.
How crazy.
See, with that, John, I was just thinking about this earlier, even just 10 minutes into the game. I suppose there's two camps that you could sort of fall into in this one, and it's that with the January transfer window now open and the emphasis being on the lack of creativity that we've had, do you think that maybe there's been talk of, for example, maybe like Isco coming in on a 6-month loan, or Buendia coming in, or do you think that ASR maybe needs the sort of the pressure release of a signing coming in to take the weight off, the burden of creativity off his shoulders, or do you fall under the sort of camp of bringing somebody like an Isco in could maybe stunt his chances to really make an impact in the side?
And that's a great question. And I think that there is a concern that you would stun a young player's growth by bringing in an established player that is going to jump right in there. But I think that there is the counter argument that is just as valid, where you show that a player that gets brought in like that increases the drive of these young players as well. Yeah. And I think that I'm more inclined to lean towards the latter, that the end of the day, we can't rely on Emile Smith-Rowe, as good as he's been, to hold down that midfield position for us for the entire season, especially considering we have multiple, right now we're still in Europa, and we have, and it's just going to get more difficult in Europa and the rest of the season, where we're going to need a push to try to make some kind of, gain on our rivals. So I think there is a need for a player to come in that position, a creative player to come in that position. And I think it's a great test for Emile Smith-Rowe. But at the same time, I don't think a player just automatically jumps in now. I think the way that Emile Smith-Rowe has been playing, I think he's made himself almost undroppable.
If we sign, look, I don't know that much about Emi Buendia, but if we sign Emi Buendia for a quite reasonable price, has been listed, he doesn't automatically relegate ESR to the bench, does he?
Correct. I don't think he does.
He
I
should.
Well, if I could play devil's advocate there just for a second, because I know it's a big win, and I don't want to look like I'm throwing negatives out, so it's solely for the purpose of playing devil's advocate.
Yeah.
If I was to say that there's evidence of that, I think the one disappointment that we all maybe
because we
have,
want to get views on YouTube, so we have to have one shitbag.
Everybody out. No,
Constantly.
it's what do you call it? If we're looking for one piece of evidence, you'd say that Gabriel Martinelli didn't feature tonight, and Mikel Arteta persisted to put an out of form Aubameyang on the left who failed to flatter.
Well, but I think Aubameyang at this point is a guy who we need to try to keep lighting the fire underneath. Like he's got to get opportunities here and there to regain his form. But when the chips are on the table and we have to have our best attacking four, like I would say Newcastle Aubameyang gets a start again. But when we got our next league game against Crystal Palace, it's got to be Saka, Laka, Martinelli, ESR in the front four. I mean, Aubameyang has not done anything to earn an automatic start. I think I don't know that he looked disinterested, Jay, but like he's so far down the pecking order of his own confidence and his own skill. And look, he's got more than he's showing, but he's just lost it. And that doesn't mean we should just banish him. That's what we do. We banish players, and then all of a sudden we never get them back. But we need them to have these opportunities. But by no means should he automatically be on the team sheet. And that's what we've always done with our captains, is like we've always made the captain into the person who, when he's in a slump, he can't be benched.
But the one argument you would make against that, Mike, is that, say, for example, somebody who has hit form of late is Lacazette. And one thing that he done while he was out of form was his work rate was never questionable. You know what I mean? And it just seems like that. But look, we'll maybe not cover Aubameyang too much because we're only after winning 4-0. But what about John? Somebody we mentioned there, Kieran Tierney.
God, I love Owen so much, man. This was my idea, and Owen's taking it over, and that's what I need. I want him. I love him.
It's just the credibility of the podcast. The credibility of the podcast could go down the window after you said about having a group of teenagers there, and now you've got a T-shirt saying "Youth In." So I'm trying to steer it away from you as much as I can.
I'm not saying what goes in.
Next thing you'll be telling us you're only doing this half clothed from the waist up.
Yeah, I think I should probably make that happen. So.
No, but John, Kieran Tierney, what about him this evening? What do you make of his performance? Stunning goal, wasn't it?
I mean, yeah. And I tweeted it out. I tweeted out like half in jest that he's the best left back in the world. But, there's a case to be made that he's, top 5 right now. And it's not
just who's better. I mean,
I'm not going to.
I know this is a Tom Canton discussion, but who's better left back right now? Is Alaba? Trent Robert is
all those players.
Alphonso
Davies at Bayern, Arnold at Liverpool.
You think Davies is better than Tierney?
I don't know. I think.
Yeah, I mean, he's American. He can't be.
No, that's not true. But look. That game of who's better. I think that they have different qualities. I think right now, they do. I'm not
laughing at you. I'm laughing at Mikey.
Oh, thank God, Mike has another. Okay, yeah.
He thought I was actually just
yeah. So I put that. I tweeted that out like half in jest, but there's an argument to be made there. I mean, you can make the argument that he's top 5, and I think he absolutely is. And it's not just this game. Like, I'm not overreacting here. This has been all season for him. Even when we all were playing like crap, Kieran Tierney was
here. I think here's the big difference with Kieran Tierney.
Not just with the ball.
No, but this is exactly feeding into my point. Is that I think that the difference with Kieran Tierney is I think that you can put the likes of Alphonso Davies into a Barcelona, but can you put him into a Stoke? And I think that's the difference, is that Kieran Tierney is the type of left back where he's just so individually competent that he would fit in at any team regardless of the system. He
just doesn't stop. And it's like, it's a joke that he kind of just wears t-shirt and shorts, even though it's like a blizzard outside and he's making snow angels or whatever. But like that aspect of him, as funny as it is, really falls into what we're talking about him. This kind of tenacity and this never stop, he just does not stop the entire match. He's constantly, I mean, he is an absolute miserable player to defend against. As a right back, I would, as a right defender or right back, like trying to defend Kieran Tierney must be a pain in the ass. And I love it. And look, he's amazing. I love the guy. And I think that he's only going to get better, I think. And, touch wood that he doesn't get injured or something. But, guy, I did the thing. We're good. If it happens, it's because of that shirt you were just wearing and nothing to do with me. So
it happened because of your beard.
Yeah. Well, the beard, look, whatever. The beard's not going anywhere. So if that's what it is, tough shit. Right. So look, I agree with you, man. He's such a good player, and he absolutely was pulling the strings on the left-hand side. And someone kind of tweeted out, I forget who it was. It might have been Clive, who was like, can a left back run the entire game? And I think the answer is, in many cases with Kieran Tierney, yes, he can.
Yeah, and I think even the games that we narrow. Someone help me here. Narrowly, come on, John, help me.
Nope.
Say it. No, fuck you, man. I think the games that we struggled and narrowly. Fuck. I speak good England.
Yeah.
Anyway, the games that we just missed out on. There we go. I think that Kieran Tierney was. I think that he almost single-handedly dragged us to draws within those games. I mean, we look at Wolves, we look at Burnley, Leeds, all these games that we drop points, and it's like, really, like you says, it's so. I think Trent Alexander-Arnold is probably the only comparison that you can say in terms of a fullback actually dominating the game.
Well, and he's got the full set of skills. He can hit a free kick. He can hit. I mean, he can score off a dead ball. I mean, we don't know whether Tierney can or not.
If this is like the start of Tierney banging in goals like that, man, that goal was unbelievable. He assisted himself.
I know who should be worried.
He assisted himself.
Nigel Winterburn should be worried right now because his slot, and I know I like to talk about slots, but his slot is about to head down a little bit because
clip that up that Mike has just said that Nigel Winterburn is shite.
I did not say that, but instead of being maybe the second or third best left back of all time for us, we might have to go down a bit.
Yeah. So I disagree with Mike's point that he just made that Nigel Winterburn is shit. I don't think Nigel Winterburn is shit. Just for the record.
So I did not say that.
What about I'm sorry to take over, but I'm just interested to see John's take on a couple of questions that I was asking earlier, which was Pablo Mari. I mentioned that I think that he was somebody who was unfairly sort of thrown under the bus when people talked about the signings of David Luiz and Cedric and Willian, and and I think that he was unfairly judged without having a fair crack of the whip. But what have you made as him? Because that was like it could be a massive injury to Gabriel, or not a massive injury, a massive absence of Gabriel.
Yeah,
and he's really come in and sort of took that position by the reins, hasn't he?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'll tell you, I never really understood what people were so against Mari for. I never saw anything in his performances that really made me concerned. Like, I never saw like he wasn't going to be like a top, world-class defender, but the guy was always pretty decent when I saw him. And, I was always asking.
Wrong other than get hurt. I mean,
and not even that. Just like, he, like you said, he never got a proper.
Get hurt and they become the best player that's ever played. Some people get hurt and like if they don't have that name pedigree.
Yeah,
then
but even putting injury aside for a minute, just his performances, even after the injury, taking that into consideration, were decent, irrespective of him being injured. So even if it was a player that we had just signed and didn't get injured and was just maybe taking some time to work his way into the side normally, his performances weren't really warranting the kind of criticism I was seeing of him. And ever since that he's gotten this kind of main spotlight since Gabriel's been out, he's really taken the opportunity to show that he's a fair player. He's a fair player.
He's very confident.
Does he remind you of Mertesacker in the sense that he's not flashy?
He's not that slow. He isn't like.
No, I don't mean he's that slow.
I'll tell you. I
hated Mertesacker playing for us because he was so slow. But I actually started to appreciate his tactical awareness and the fact that you find your weakness and you make up for it in a different way, or you don't play. And the reason he was playing, and that last season he had, I learned a lot about him because I mean, look, I saw him get out jumped for a header in a Champions League game against Anderlecht by 5'2" Mitrovic, and we blew a 3-0 lead because of him. Like I've seen him in that situation, and that's where I pretty much gave up on him. But then, Mari isn't that slow. He's not that. He may not have the level of brain that a Mertesacker had to try to make up for his lack of skill, but he's serviceable at worst.
No, but that's exactly what I'm saying. He's been extremely competent, and there was a lot of criticism of him, and I didn't really understand where it was coming from. And it might have been just a case of how well we've seen it under Gabriel that, maybe it was just seen as a step down, which not arguably, I'm pretty sure it is a step down from Gabriel. Gabriel's been absolutely massive for us this season, but then to kind of flip that and say just because he's been so good, Gabriel's been so good that we should look less of the actual performances objectively, I think is inappropriate. I don't think
that's naivety, and that's like people wanting to have takes.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's probably what it is, because I didn't see it from a footballing perspective. I couldn't tell, and I was like, "Am I the one that just doesn't understand what I'm seeing on the pitch?" Or
well, I mean that could certainly be the case.
Yeah, I think it still might be. But my point is that from that perspective, which is all that I got.
You could have no idea what's going on the pitch, but you could also be right about Pablo Mari.
Yeah, broken clock is right twice a day, right? So maybe that's the case here, and it very well might be. But at the same time, I like to think that I have some sense of what's going on for the most part, even though it's probably not the case. But when I see him play, it's always been something that made me think that the criticism he got was unfair. That's all.
Yeah, and a question here, Mike. I don't want to ignore the boys in the chat. Matthew De Souza says, "I think the priority should be finding number 8 to play alongside Partey, even though Ceballos did well." And I tell you, the one person that I'm not sure whether it's a realistic target financially, but if you cast your mind back to Brighton, last week, Basuma, what do you make of maybe a player like him? Because if you're looking at ESR and Saka, Martinelli, displaying expressing freedom in their creative roles, imagine having a base of Basuma and Partey behind them.
Let me ask you something. As a guy who's not afraid to to admit his weaknesses, I do a podcast. I don't know everything. I actually don't know anything. Is it impossible for Mainsley to be that guy as an 8? I know he's probably got a little bit more of a hustle down, win the ball back, and I know obviously what he gives at right back and right wing back. But if he's playing in midfield, which is his preferred position, and we know that he's got the work rate, does he cancel out Partey, or can he play next to Partey? My
concern with that is just his technical passing ability. I think
who's going to connect,
right?
Because Partey could do that, but not if he's also protecting the back four.
Yeah, and I think that doesn't mean that he's not a good passer. That Mainsley's not a good passer because he is. But I think when you can think about Ramsey and that 8 role, that box to box midfielder, this was a player that had not only this incredible technical passing ability, but he was a serious assist and goal threat as well. And I don't think we've really seen that side of Mainsley's game. We've seen his ability to get on the ball. We've seen his crossing. We've seen his kind of tenacity, which is all stuff you need as a box-to-box midfielder, that kind of engine behind him. But that kind of final, decisive ball or goal or pass, I don't think we've seen that as much with Mainsley. Not that it's not there, just that's what gives me pause about saying, yeah, let's go for that.
In terms of his actual athletic profile, you would probably say he would be the best fit to be maybe slotted into that role out of anybody in the club. He has the potential to play there, but just at this moment in time, I think the fundamentals of his game is sort of lacking, and consistency as well is something that would worry me. He's a very good player, and he has the ability to
consistency when you play 5 minutes at the end of every third game. I mean, I was so happy to see him
play.
What was it? I don't know if Bellerin had a bit of a niggle, or if it was literally. I would like to think that in that game at that moment, what was it, 2-0 at that point?
I think wasn't it 3? It was either
it was,
2 or 3. It was either 2 or
5
3.
or 6 minutes into the second half. I mean,
Okay, then 2.
It was probably 2. And Ballon's got a yellow card, another one, and another one. And I'd like to think, it's the kind of defensive sub that isn't just throwing in a fifth defender. It's not like they threw in Louise and took out Lacazette or something like that. I mean, they weren't just going to sit on the lead, but they put in a player who had fresh ass legs, work great until the cows come home, and the cows never come home, in my experience. And I loved that sub, and I love it more if Bellerin wasn't feeling like tight. Like, I love it more just if it was tactical than if it was injury. I just don't know that I'm going to give Arteta that much credit at this point because he's shown such a predilection to not put Mainsley on unless he absolutely has to. But that's going to be a guy in January it's going to be very interesting to watch his playing time in the next 4 weeks.
Speaking of feeling tight, Mike, look, there's enough nonsense on this show as it is, but here we go. We'll add another bit of nonsense to it as well.
Oh yeah. Thank you for doing that. I've completely forgot.
Mike,
I thought you would introduce me. What's going on?
How you saying?
I was listening to the podcast and I couldn't help but notice you guys were all saying Mr. Arteta's name wrong, and so
yeah, we need the guy with the machine gun mouth to go.
Have you not seen me trying to pronounce just standard words
narrowly? I mean, John,
where was that fucking face?
John refused to save you there, man. That was harsh.
I didn't know. I needed him to work his way through it. I needed more. That's how you learn.
Yeah, I just saw your message. I just saw your message, Owen, and the answer is yes. Mike DM'd me.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
I know I'm a bit late with that information, but yeah. So now we've got a proper panel of happy Gooners.
Yes, we do.
So look, man. I mean, Owen, you're doing a great job of driving this, so I don't want to get in your way. But
first of all, wait, sorry, Mike. Did you watch the match?
One of
he just stepped in. He just stepped in to
there was a match today.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there sure was.
Three of us watched the match, and then the guy running the podcast is no. But I was telling Owen a story earlier about how when Andy and I were like in our first season, but we were like actually starting to get some guests and some people that were listening that we didn't know already, like before we started doing the podcast. He's like if you didn't watch the match, just fucking play it off, act like you did, because we lose all of our credibility if you're like, yeah, I TiVo'd it and I watched the highlights, and now it's just I'm like, I would rather pod if I didn't watch the match than if I did watch the match.
So tell me how you think we played. No, please, because I didn't watch it. I need someone to explain it to me.
Yeah, really. No, I mean, I'm going to talk as though I liked it, but as though I watched it. But no,
that's why I took the hosting role, because it actually seems genuine, like something a host would do. I'm asking questions that somebody who hasn't watched the match.
Well, yeah, right. And Owen said he would jump on the podcast as long as I acted out all of our goals today.
I can't hear any. Go, Mike.
And I told him I would, but I lied because I can't get out of this chair right now.
He was too bit. He was making a shirt when the game was on. So.
Yeah. After the shirt, I rushed up. Did you see it?
No, dude.
We saw it. The FBI saw it.
Everybody saw it.
Yeah.
And now after Owen's comment, you're under investigation.
Yeah, my family is screaming at me that there's somebody at the door right now, and they're not being very patient. So
yeah, usually when they have a warrant, they're not too patient.
Tell Officer Anderson that I'm on the air right now, and I will come down when I'm done. I'll come when I'm done.
That's what I like to hear. Anyway, Mike Hurts, thoughts on the game, buddy.
Dude, amazing. I mean, it sounds it looks like we're almost kind of gelling a little bit more. The fact that dumb luck maybe that William, whether you choose to believe whether he was well or unwell, what was the comment, whether that was the case or he's been sat out, whatever the reason was, Saka playing on the right is apparently the solution to William and Pepe. It's
He's
just
been on the left so much, and then all of a sudden he's on the right, and it's like
No,
he's
So good. He's so
He's
good.
so
This is-
freaking good.
but see,
So good.
Mike, that's a great point because this is something that's really fucking frustrated me, and it's that we talk about Saka playing on the right. Surely in 2020, 2021, the modern day of football, that your wingers are inverted. Like the vast majority of wingers play on the side of their weaker foot. So if you're right-footed, you'll play on the left wing, so you can cut inside and shoot. It's actually not overly often anymore that you get a left-footed winger playing on the left wing.
well, I guess it's what you
the
want.
Arjen
because,
Robben
like,
effect.
yeah, that's what I'm saying, right? It depends on what you want. I mean, it seems like Arteta's been pretty consistent with the hey, we want a lot of crosses, and now we're doing a little bit less crossing, but we're doing crossing lower crosses and way more effective. You know, we got more people in the box, so it's just so I'm not like surprised. Like, you know, he's not cutting in. Well, he is. He has a wonderful left foot too. Fuck, he's such a good player.
He's really good.
But you know, like him,
What position can he not play? I mean, we don't know that he isn't a better keeper than
he's
Leno.
short, so for sure don't put him in goal. But other than
Well,
that,
I
Yeah,
don't know.
Ospina was pretty short, and he was
oh,
decent.
I came up with an awesome, horrible take on why we're winning, and I figured out who the mole was. We're 3-0 ever since Gabriel stopped playing for us.
Oh no!
There it is.
There it is. It's already one day into the new year. It's already one day into the new year, and we have the worst take of 2021.
What are we like 10 goals and 1 allowed since Gabriel?
Why has nobody memed up? Do any of us remember in South Park when they were at Le Mole? You know, why has nobody ever?
I don't know.
It's fucking ridiculous.
Dude, no, but it was awesome. And I can
hilarious.
tell you, I genuinely lost my shit when I saw that beautiful pattern of play. And was it
Saka's
Rowe
goal?
that crossed it into Saka? And he just, dude, I'm laying in bed. I'm watching it on my iPad because my son beat me to the big TV today, and I just didn't want to deal with taking Mickey Mouse off. Right?
Then you beat your son away from the big TV.
There you go. So
I told you, anytime you need that kind of family advice, you call me.
And I
don't handle it yourself.
Yes.
I will take care of it for you.
Listen. Mike is an expert at dealing with teenagers.
Especially the younger boys.
he's gonna regret.
Now listen. Listen, my son. Oh my God! No, my son is 17. He is my best friend in the world. I love the guy. He's so into like playing FIFA with his friends that sometimes like an Arsenal game will be on and he just disappears and he's down in the basement. And I'm like, this is the one thing we had, man. I mean, come on. But I don't want to force him because he's his own guy. He's 17. I don't want to force him to watch Arsenal with him because then you build up this resistance. So today he's downstairs and Tierney scores his goal, which 60 seconds before I see the goal on Peacock, you fucks, I'm seeing tweets about it already from gunners.com, which is a great Twitter account. You should follow them. But so I knew we were about to score. And as the goal goes in, my son's running upstairs because he was also 20 seconds ahead of me watching on his phone. So I have the slowest TV of all people that watch the game, which makes me better than Owen, but because you didn't watch the game. So my son comes up, running up, jumps into my arms, and we watch the rest of the game together. And this is the kind of game that like brings father and son together. Which my point is, Mike, you need to just beat your kids until they watch the game with you, because ultimately they will enjoy it. But watching the I mean, just he's like, where's this Arsenal been all year? Where'd they come from? He's like, all my friends who are all various supporters of various teams that are in my Discord and in my chat and all this stuff. He's like, where is this Saka coming from? And Arsenal all of a sudden look like the Arsenal of old. And I'm like, yeah, they do.
It was nice, man. I mean, I can't even begin to explain how the hell we're playing this good. And
I don't even know who I was digging out, Jay, but it was. I think you're right about that.
Was that meant to be a dig out? Or?
It's unclear. That's a great question, Mike.
Oh,
It's not
when I dig out, I dig out, and I dig out myself and everyone else too. So.
Probably digs himself a little more, and then it just keeps going.
There you go.
That's how we do it.
John Lacazette. We'll move this on. We talked
I was
about
just about to fucking say this too.
Yeah.
Daniel XD. I was about to say that. Now I'm going to run it through the translator, and then
what is that, Mike? Can you read this?
I legit when he
said
yeah,
I was gonna. I forgot we have a Guatemalan on the show. My people, something. My name.
No, wait now. Look, we've literally got a guy who can speak this language there.
Yeah, but I'm going to try to do it better than him. No. Go ahead,
bro. No, translate that. That's a long thing for me to go ahead.
It sounded
Is it find out that you've been lying about your heritage?
It sounded.
He doesn't actually. He pronounced Arteta, but he doesn't actually.
You fucking fake Guatemalan.
He doesn't actually.
Fake Guatemalan.
His name is
I've got a lot of fake Guatemalans over my time, but you take the cake, my friend.
Hey,
his name's actually Chuck.
Being Guatemalan, who would have faked that?
That's a great question, Mike. You tell us.
Holy shit, we've just discovered
I know, a resentful Mexican. That's what it is.
I am happy I hopped onto this pod, gentlemen.
He didn't know when he joined the podcast that he was going to be exposed as being like a yuppie.
So yes, Lacazette. Absolutely.
Yeah, Lacazette, yes.
Yeah, I mean, 2 goals. And I thought, the second one was, people were saying it's lucky. Yeah, I guess it has to fall to you. But your striker needs to be occupying those spaces to get those kind of rebounds. And that's like the first thing you learn. You're not like running around like you're a chicken with your head cut off. You got to make sure that you're in those areas, because a ball can just bounce off directly, especially if the keeper's not paying attention and pushing it off to a safe side. So that's what happened with that second one. The first one, look, I mean, it was an interesting goal, I guess is a way of putting it.
Yeah.
It was off his knee, right? It was a pretty. I thought it was offside for a second, but it was pretty close.
But again, John, with like you said, there, Lacazette has to be occupying that 6-yard box and in there. Yeah. And do you think there has been? Have you seen a tactical adjustment in his positioning? Because we really seen him playing in a sort of in between striker, false 9 almost. You would say. Have you seen much of a tactical change in how he's been deployed?
I have, and remember, I don't know if you've ever heard the kind of dialogue that we were having a while back about Lacazette. It was always that, even this was when he was scoring, it was his, even though when he wasn't scoring, there was a point in time, it's like a balancing test. There was a point in time where his off the ball movement and his work rate and everything like that, especially dropping deep, which was what seemed originally to be the plan for Lacazette, outweighed the fact that he wasn't actually scoring goals. But what had happened was there came a point in time where his off the ball movement all of a sudden did not outweigh the lack of goal scoring. So he either needed to do better off the ball and do better with his work rate, or start scoring more goals. And what we're seeing with him in the last couple games, and hopefully he continues, is a little bit of both. We're seeing more goal production, and he's 4-4 now, I think it is. And not only that, he's also his work rate is great. He's not dropping back as deep. He's letting the midfield do their thing. We're not relying on it as much, so we're not playing with one man down up front. We're actually having a striker who's pressuring the keeper, who's pressuring defenders, and he is a physical, annoying guy to play against. So when you're doing that, it's opening up the spaces for your Aubameyangs and for your Tierney and for your Saka to come into, or Bellerin even when he's doing an overlap, to come into dangerous areas and open spaces for passes, which is why we're seeing these kind of plays like ESR was able to make, because Locke is dragging these defenders left and right, which is what he was so good at. And I think that's the tactical change. He wasn't doing it as much before. It was almost like a midfielder because we had nothing. Now there's a little bit more solidity there. So that's, I think, what we're seeing from tactical.
That is an excellent point. And I'd also like to point out that Daniel is digging the hell out of us out, man. At this point, what he has said apparently is something about our pergenza, and I don't know what our pergenza is. But...
There are people shouting my name. Your face is still normal, but your pergenza hides what is happening. Man, you were poor. You forgot to be poor. You are not a fat lining. I need a fat lining.
That's a good take.
Right,
I think that's
he's absolutely right, guys.
I think he's probably aimed at you, Mike.
But
Hurt, even
he was saying the shame. So I think he was saying, because it was pretty broken up, it was saying that we should have more shame. We didn't play all that well. I think
What?
I think that's what.
All I
Dude, the
heard
Spanish
was that
dude-
he called me a porn fuck, which is true.
which
Yeah.
is
And
okay,
then-
right? Which is
Yeah.
okay.
And then I mean, like, look,
On the Lacazette point, is this like one of the first times in
what the Pregenza?
in the Pregenza of this season that we're playing 4-2-3-1 with somebody behind him versus him being the 10?
I think that was always the issue with
Yeah.
both our strikers, Mike. Is that
that
there
they
was a
had
lack
to
of
drop
there's
deep
a lack
to
of
create
support. It's a
something
lonely
versus-
role. But here's one I even have for you, Hertz, as well. Is that we talk so much about like contracts and blah blah blah, and sometimes I get bored of talking about it. But Alexander Lacazette's coming into the sort of last year and a half of his current Arsenal deal, and although it's important not to jump and throw big contracts out at players after a few games of decent form, but do you think? Where would you side on? Do you think it would be important to sort of tie Lacazette down to a new deal to, if anything, protect your financial asset, or do you think that you risk sort of giving another bumper deal to a player who'll sort of sit around and warm the bench for the remainder of it?
God,
Is he in his 30s already? I'm
That
really,
great- that was
great
was
move.
is he 29, 30?
Yeah,
He's either 28 until he's 29 or he's 29.
Yeah.
I'll look it up
Well, I
now.
mean, if that's the case, I mean, I kind of view it at the same way. I'm seeing
He's
a bunch
29.
of heat.
He's 29. until the
So
end
I'm
of the
seeing
season.
a lot of heat on the holding contract extension, right?
Mhm.
But we're in the same transfer window where people are complaining that we have 6 players walking out the door for free.
Yep.
And now you're turning around and you're upset because players are getting bumper deals. So the club is, in my opinion, and I know this is very controversial, in the last couple of years have been moving and trying to steady the ship in a better direction. So for me, this is good business. Mike, don't die on me.
I love this guy right here.
Don't say anything important for a few minutes.
He needs some filler, so he wants me to talk.
Wow, that was fantastic.
I got my Como se llama jersey.
Stop
It's
pretending.
it's Yama.
Yeah.
No, it's
literally
Lalana.
Lalana. See,
It's Lalana.
It's Arteta.
That's Arteta. John, I'm loving you right now. I think it's a smart move, in my opinion. And following up on the whole Lacazette thing, I think Lacazette offers something that Aubameyang doesn't through the middle. And I know that I'm not saying he's the greatest in the world at it, but he does offer more than Aubameyang does at least hold up play and link up play amongst now that he has 3 players around him.
All right. So Mike, like long range planning then, and Jay brings this up, and I was about to bring it up until Jay did, and then I'm going to still do it because Jay's not on the podcast and I am. Fallaghan. No, he did correct the typo. Like Lacazette is an interesting guy because this summer I not purely on form, but I would have moved him on if we could have gotten. I thought moving him on was probably going to be our key to getting Partey. I'm glad that we didn't need to, but like he's got value, and probably not a tremendous like this is the last time he's going to have value. And look, if we get 3 great years out of him and he plays like he did today for 3 more years, then I'll squeeze the value out of him and be happy to see him go to the MLS afterwards or whatever whatever he ends up doing and visiting John at his house. But like, because everyone wants to go to Miami now. But like, could you potentially take a bit of a risk because Lacazette is a known quantity, but he's also getting older and he's a bit inconsistent and maybe can't always do 90 minutes. Would you move him on for money and tie down Ballon and be like, look, you are his successor? Not immediately, not 90 minutes every game, but like we're not bringing someone else in to get in front of you. You are, unlike Nketiah, who now I finally agree with Tom Canton about. You are his. You're Lacazette 2.0 right now.
Sorry, say that again.
Say that one more time.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to say it. I'm not.
We got to get Tom's name in 5 times per pod. Remember that.
Yeah, I was under the influence when I said that just now, but
I would
only because Ballon's the next. He's the next.
He's the next Eddie Nketiah.
I would honestly hold on. Well, Aubameyang.
You have to make those ballsy moves sometimes, though. You can't wait until you know exactly how it's going to pan out, can you? Because that's what we've been guilty of doing. We wait so long, and then it doesn't pan out, and we've completely lost the Rion Brewster £24 million value that we could have had for these guys. And so like sometimes don't you have to kind of like
take a leap of faith?
Make that tough decision?
I would keep Aubameyang and Lacazette going into the next season, and I would rather try to move on and get
I'm not.
In order that Balogun.
That's not the question. That's not the question.
Well,
I'm talking.
Well,
I'm
Mike,
talking about.
Can you give me a question because you kind of just start?
I'm talking about moving on.
Champagne.
I'm talking.
Go, Mike.
You muted him.
I'm going to take your powers away, Moses.
That's John, man. It's not.
My bad. Sorry.
Yeah. The host, John, who has the guest link.
Just fuck.
All right, look. I'm not talking about not moving the Nketiah. I'm talking about Lacazette or Balogun at this point next year.
Ooh.
I'm saying. Do you know what Lacazette can do? But you also know that he's got some sell value if you find a team that I mean I think you can probably get 20 or 30 million for him.
But I wonder is it a case of say for example your option A in Aubameyang isn't even as good as your option B at the minute, so they're reluctant to pull the trigger on Lacazette because Aubameyang isn't producing the goods.
I think everyone's
the whole thing about Balogun, though. Like sometimes you gotta like, and you know what? If it doesn't work out, if that just falls on your face, then you go spend money on Edward.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I like it. I like the idea of Balogun starting and like doing.
He likes the idea of being friends with me too, but the reality is not.
I'll defer to you on that, but in terms of actually, like, you know, seeing a player that comes to, you know, like Balogun actually succeed and get the chance, like, I would be more excited about Balogun doing well than Lacazette doing well. Does that, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But
he's a bird in the hand, and he's like this gem that we own. But
right.
we're going to lose that gem for zero.
No, it's future proofing yourself. So
right.
If Mike, if your question is as simple as, do you persist with Lacazette or Balogun? Like, if I had to keep one or the other, Balogun. I would keep him and I would sell Lacazette.
What about that option, John?
Don't put anything up there that says Diego Costa. I forbid.
No, if it's right now keeping Lacazette or keeping Balogun.
Sorry, Vivek, but that's
I think Lacazette is an excellent player, but I feel like we're gonna be losing something with Balogun. That might be wrong, you know. All of a sudden, it might be that he just kind of shined for briefly, and then nothing ever ends up happening. But at the end, it would be so sad to lose a player like we've already saw it with Gnabry, and I know that like we're kind of like beat into being afraid of losing players like that. We've had really bad experiences letting these youth players go.
I gotta lose Saliba.
Well, Saliba, I haven't even seen him play for us, so that's easy.
All I'm saying is, if you told me those two guys are no longer a member of our team,
but rather than
each one of them, I think we might get 12 million.
Before we move the goalpost, in terms of Lacazette, I think that he's an excellent player. I think that, you know, he has his limitations, and I think that maybe consistency is an issue with him. But like I said, from, you can call it a romantic kind of point perspective, I would feel so bad if we let out on another player, one of these young Arsenal players that just starts tearing it up somewhere else. And then it's always a what could have been. We know what Lacazette is. It's not going to be like Lacazette's going to all of a sudden go into this next incredible level. He might. It would be great, but I just don't see it happening at this stage in his career versus someone like Balogun, where the ceiling is so high with a player.
If you're like a financial type like I am, you look at these things and you're like, you keep trying to hold things until they have no value left. Like,
yeah, I agree with that.
Lacazette is an asset that holds value, but you almost can see that you might have bought medium and sold high.
It's like a car, right? Like Lacazette's values is not going to go much higher than it is right now.
It's never going to be higher than it is right now. It will never be higher. That doesn't mean that you should get rid of it.
No, but in the same sense,
than it is now.
Right, but if we're going to get into like financial side of it, if I'm
We are,
giving you,
because
if I'm
one-
giving you, yeah, but like a more concrete example, if I'm or something that demonstrates this concrete example, if I'm giving you a widget that's going to, just any object that is going to be the highest value it is right now, and it's only going to go down from here, like a car, for example, when you drive that car, when you drive a car out of lot, it goes down. That's pretty much. Let's just assume that that's kind of like the Lacazette right now, versus something like a precious metal, which doesn't actually have a ceiling that can actually. And it's a bit loaded calling one a car and a precious metal, but with Ballon, we don't know what the ceiling is yet right now. And the fact that we don't know what the ceiling is right now, I think I'm with you, Mike. I think that we need to kind of prospect him a little bit, in the sense that we need to think, okay, what is the future value we're going to get from Lacazette versus the potential future value?
I want to know what the ceiling is, and I'm not so worried about finding out what the floor is.
Yeah,
but even Hurts, when you take into account that it's sort of looking ever more likely that we're going to have a complete lack of European football next season, I think that's something that we can all agree that the Europa League has been brilliant for, is promoting the youth and getting a look at the youth, the likes of Gabriel Martinelli, Saka, Emile Smith-Rowe. But do we really need to start looking, Hurts, at the likes of maybe Balogun and Michael Aziz, Willock, Kincadia, all these players, and start really tailoring them down? Because the truth is that the competitions, the game time is going to be much more limited if we are out of Europe for a season, that we can't really have a bunch of stagnating talent on the thing. So, like, if it comes to January and that is looking ever more unlikely, who are the sort of players that you would be looking to maybe shift on to benefit from a loan?
For a loan, yeah. I mean, for
permanently,
sure.
if you think anybody should be moved permanently.
I don't want to let go of any of these young players that we currently have. It seems like they have such a I keep on seeing Sirjan, Aziz, and I don't see why not give them an opportunity. So if we're loaning players out, loan out the youth product if we do not qualify to Europa League. As far as selling goes, let's not repeat history. I mean, we got a few older players. I mean, I honestly, you look at Lacazette. Luis is going to leave.
Don't forget about Muller. He's the next.
But
Muller,
even one thing I would say, Hurts, though, is that you have to think of too. Sorry, and I'll let you carry on. Is that youth is a currency too? That once these players, the likes of Reece Nelson, Joe Willock, whoever it is, hits 23, 24 years old, their value diminishes, and that's down to the reasoning as well, is because people have a much bigger sample size of where they think that their ceiling is, whereas now they're still sort of like, look at Wayne Brewster for example, leaving Liverpool for that price tag. I doubt he would have went for that money if he had sat around on Liverpool's bench for another 2 or 3 years.
Well, the difficulty there for me. Go ahead, Mike.
I'm just saying how they pulled that off, and we're talking. I mean, like the price for Ainsley is 20, and
lost.
And Brewster's 20.
Is there a freeze button? Now you froze him out.
I didn't freeze him. That wasn't me.
There he is. He's back.
No, Mike, go on ahead. We'll ask you there.
Explain. Explain how Mainsley's price tag was 20 for Wolves, and Rian Brewster literally sold for 24. Like, I mean,
I think it's just that because he's a striker. Most of and I know that's
striker never plays.
Do you want to know what Jay actually makes?
Reality is most of the time strikers cost more than midfielders. And to answer your question about Owen, the thing is we got to get better at identifying what's the potential, or figure out what kind of potential, what kind of level these players could meet. Because look, as time goes by, we see more in Willock. You could argue that Willock's value has only gone down.
Jay Mainsley should have gotten a premium then too. Like, he's on the actual England squad.
Jay's point there was actually double barrel there, Mike. He says, but with Brexit increases, which is true. As we've seen, we really took advantage of that European market, taking in some youthful talent during last summer. And I'm not sure whether you're too scrubbed up on what Brexit has actually done for football, John. No, about the import of players and how we could maybe exploit to move on some of those players for an increased price.
So you haven't read any of Tom's articles?
He did a tactical breakdown on it earlier, so that's why I asked John, because I
definitely thought. No, but look, obviously you're going to have...
Nobody here watched Tom's show, is what you're saying?
No, we're contractually obligated to watch.
There was already a premium on English players though, and that's the crazy part now when you're dealing with like post Brexit. Like, first of all, we don't know exactly what Brexit, without getting into a Brexit conversation.
There's also a pretty good article in the Athletic about it. I mean, not as good as Tom's, of course,
right?
But,
obviously,
but
Tom's video. I don't like.
But it's something that's a
scoring system now.
It's going to change the landscape of how international players and even especially youth players are kind of affected in terms of transfers. So it's definitely a consideration that needs to be considered going forward. And when you're talking about valuation of players, it's already been an interesting. You've seen this kind of like domestic bubble with these players, where part of it had to do with homegrown status, and now it's going to be like, well, Brexit considerations are going to factor in as well. So when you have a player that's an English player, not only are you dealing with homegrown aspects of it, but there's other ones. So it should be interesting to see the effect of that, because I think it's
basically Grealish is now a £150 million player.
I mean, arguably he was. Who knows how much? Who knows what Grealish is worth in the Premier League right now?
I think the thing is
that can reconstruct their entire squad by selling that guy.
Yeah, they're gonna have to get.
I could be completely wrong here, and somebody in the chat can correct me if I'm wrong. Is that the thing is that with these sort of youth signings from mainland Europe, is that for players to acquire them into the youth academy or their youth system, or they're buying them, there's a lot more legal fees have to be paid in terms of getting them their visas and stuff like that there. So if they're already here, that removes that, which obviously increases the price of somebody who's already registered within here.
These kind of like Bellerin deals, you're not going to see them anymore. Like how we got Bellerin, that would not happen post Brexit. Like we would, if it was now and we were looking to get Bellerin from Barcelona, it wouldn't happen. It wouldn't happen. So that's going to affect the way that transfers are made as well. Mike.
I'm sorry, John. Because I'm not too familiar. I haven't watched the video. It's Tom's video. Jokes aside, but are we not allowed to go for youth foreign players anymore?
Not under 18. Not under 18.
Yeah.
Not under 18. Okay, thanks. Sorry. Go on.
And the ones above 18 have to have a profile where there's this point system now that, interestingly enough, favors players from South America more than it does from Europe.
Yep. Yeah. So like I said, if
you're look at international for Portugal, then you're not going to have a problem. But if you're like we would not have been able to sign Guendouzi under the current rules.
Guendouzi, Bellerin. I mean, all these players, like, that wouldn't have happened. And it's it's interesting to see kind of what the effect of that's going to be. I'd imagine you're going to see a lot more international domestic players being, the price of domestic players are going to go up, because it's not like, you could just go to Europe and buy these young players anymore. If you want an 18-year-old or younger than 18-year-old player, it has to be domestic, or like Mike said, maybe from one of these.
But it's funny because, Mike, you made the comparison, and John, I think you agreed on it there, that the South American market is going to be easier to exploit for English teams, which is funny, because it's actually notoriously difficult to sign South American players into England, as we've seen with the Lucas Torreira and
the podcast started. I think I now realize you might have been talking about when these restrictions on.
He was talking about the restrictions.
Yeah.
I thought it was the pod too.
I thought he was waiting for the podcast to start. I'm like, well, it's going to get really good in about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
All right.
Nude. With them South American players, it is notoriously difficult to get them in. I think even Willian had a lot of trouble getting the transfer to Chelsea, because they have to. It's the same sort of system, points and not national side appearances and stuff. And yes.
Sorry, don't mean to interrupt you, but here I'm going to put on a little bit of a tinfoil hat right now, and this could be just something that I thought of during this conversation. Do you think that the Brazilian side of us, the Luiz and the Willian and the Martin, like these players are first of all players of signing of opportunity? Mike's shaking his head, but the tinfoil hat strategically to kind of tap into a market to attract players, like you said, are notoriously difficult to sign. Young players who looked up to Luiz. Wait, hold on. Young players who looked up to like the Willians and the Luizes and are seeing players like Martinelli getting a chance here and flourishing, like knowing the restrictions in Europe on younger players and how much easier it's going to be over there. Is that some consideration? I have a question, Mike.
No.
If the answer is no, how do you know, Mike?
There is no gerbil. There is no evidence to think that we have that much foresight at our club. First of all,
Mike, you and me love conspiracy theories. Why are you going against the grain on this?
and to say that there's no evidence, just absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. First of all, so just because there's no evidence,
we're going there, huh?
Just because there's no evidence of it does not mean that it's not necessary. It can't be the case. I'm not saying it's true. I'm just saying it's something I thought of while you guys were talking about Brexit and how easy your Brazilian players is. And I'll tell you right now. And let me just say this. If it is the case that they had the foresight to do that, that's actually kind of incredible. And I'm not saying that is what they're doing. And that's giving them a lot of credit there.
To do that though, like who's left?
Look, I'm like 50% with.
No, Mike, this doesn't involve you. No, I'm just kidding.
Who would have had the foresight? I don't know. I don't have a list of names of who had this conversation.
Josh
it's a conspiracy theory that I just came up with as you guys were talking.
The only constant Josh Kroenke. No, I mean, look, I loved Luis being brought back for a year specifically because of the whole partnership with Gabriel and the Brazilian, blah blah blah. Before I knew, and I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that he's the mole. And before I knew about the whole dressing room situation and Luis and Socrates and Ozil and
what are we talking about anymore?
Yeah,
I'm saying the old Brazilians are bad. The new Brazilians are good, and if you want to talk about
look at Jay. Jay's got the right idea. That's right, Jay. Little finger behavior. Jay's got the right idea.
It's just ludicrous. It's ludicrous. Yes, it's ludicrous to say that we had that much foresight when we made some of the decisions that we've made with absolute.
If you think that they didn't even consider Brexit and the effect on transfer, then I think that's more ludicrous to think that they didn't consider that.
Maybe they accidentally put too much effort into.
Fine, I'll take accidentally, whatever. But the point is that like it could either end up working out or it was planned. Either way, it worked out for us, right?
If you want me to argue against the signings of Gabriel and Martinelli, I'm not going to. If you want me to argue against grabbing a guy who lived in Europe for 8 years already in Willian, then yeah, I'm going to argue against that.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that
I don't care what you say.
I did clearly.
Oh fuck! Right. Anyway,
I will have more Brazilians on our team if that's what you want.
So what I'm hearing is John is right and Mike is wrong.
There we go. Let's go with that.
Yeah,
that's the premise that we start the podcast with.
Yeah. So now that we're on the subject, what about Kennedy? Oswald or no?
Yes.
Huh?
Probably. I don't know. Who's on the grassy knoll?
I don't know, man.
Who's Wenger on the grassy knoll?
Did the moon landing happen or not? I think it did.
Hey, there was a game today, right?
Yeah, and funny, there's another one on Saturday.
So anyway, back to Lacazette. No.
Saturday. Hurts going into Newcastle.
Did you ever decide whether we would sell Lacazette and promote Ballon or no?
I was joking the first time I muted Mike. I was joking. I've got the power. I'm don't let it go to my head.
I've got the power.
Exactly. Newcastle Hurts. Going into that, the FA Cup, something that Arsenal fucking obviously hold completely dear to them, and we always put a lot of emphasis on our domestic cup wins. But going into that match, is that a game that you would be resting all the sort of mainstay players within our 11 and really pushing the kids out into that game? Or do you think that that's something that, just for the pride of the club, that we need to be taken seriously?
Look, man, I'm going to say something, and I know it's going to sound like a joke, but who are the kids at this point? Because the kids are the ones that are performing. Yeah. So going into this, unless you're talking about cutting even deeper, like watching Sirjan and Aziz get their debuts, I just don't see it. Maybe Gabriel and Partey might get a few minutes, like a half, like the second half if we're winning. But I honestly, who are the substitutes at this point? William, Pepe, and I guess we are going to see Nketiah start.
How weird is that?
Yeah.
Oneni.
They should be the substitutes at this point.
Yeah,
They
Mustafi.
should be the second squad.
Mustafi,
And we've got
hasn't
no
been
Europa
starting.
League. We've got no Europa League. So, I mean, Martinelli got today off, which I was 100% in favor of.
Yeah.
So if he gets the next game off in the FA Cup, which he probably won't, they'll probably play him. But if they don't, then he's got like 2 weeks off to just recuperate and be hungry. And I mean, the FA Cup should literally be the first team that we had in October playing.
Mm-hmm.
Minus Partey. Well, although Partey might get his minutes back in that game because of the injury, but like if not for that, I mean, it should be like a Bizarro switch situation where our
don't play Runderson.
I was literally just thinking that.
play Runderson at left back or something. I mean,
Can I say on the cups, man? I don't like the concept of it's just the FA Cup or it's just the League Cup.
No, the FA Cup is different.
Even if
go
it's
for the FA Cup, don't go for the League Cup. Go for the FA Cup.
This is what I tell people when it comes to the League Cup when they say it's a nothing game. Then why are you watching it? Why are you upset if we lose? And why are you?
I don't watch games. I don't.
Yeah, no, you don't watch them at all.
I wasn't that upset when we lost.
Yeah. Well, okay, so you're on that right, but it's just I don't know. I just don't like to consider a cup a nothing cup. A cup is a cup.
It's a trophy.
It's a trophy. It's a tournament, and look, you saw Mourinho celebrating it. You saw Guardiola celebrating it.
I don't like when people talk about. I mean, even with the Europa League, I don't like when people talk about. I mean, there is a reason to potentially talk about maybe we could be better not being in the Europa League because it's a season-long effort. But like,
agreed.
Any cup you want to go. One of our first podcasts was called Going Deep in Cups because I love going deep in cups. I mean, there's just nothing better than that. League Cup, like it's one of those. It's a free roll. You want to win it, but when you don't win it, you're like, okay, well, we didn't really want to win it. The FA Cup, you cannot say that about. No one wants to go out of the FA Cup, and this is before the conversation about, well, if you know what the FA Cup means, you should really. I mean, the FA Cup.
Where's Andy? Where's Andy? He'll tell
if you're a fan for 5 years, or if you're a fan for 50 years, you might have a different view on the FA Cup. I love the FA Cup. Andy has said he would rather win the FA Cup than the Champions League.
No.
That's some fucking bullshit.
No.
And when you take when you take 2 or 3 weeks off the podcast to hang out with your family, we respect you, but then we'll fucking undercut you every chance that we get.
Yeah.
And no, I would not rather win the FA Cup than the Champions League. I never said that, but he said that multiple times on the podcast. But I would rather win the FA Cup than finish second versus fourth in the league. I mean, like it was all this FA Cup in fifth. Remember when it was FA Cup in fifth or just finishing fourth? Those were the two awful diabolical situations that we had.
That, or just get knocked out of the knockout rounds by Bayern and Barcelona, and that was
right.
Rinse and repeat.
Those were the days.
And at that point, I chose.
We were so young.
I chose FA Cup in fifth. I'm like, look, I'd rather we play the game to win trophies. At this point, I don't know that you can answer it the same way because FA Cup in 8th isn't great. FA Cup in 12th is really not great. But like, you play to win the game when it comes to the FA Cup. Massive cup.
Listen, we're going to qualify for Europa League minimum. I'm telling you guys.
I don't know what makes you think that's for sure, but I think
everybody's like, when we fell down to 15th, you're like, well, we finished 15th. We didn't finish 15th. There's still more than half of the season to go. We still got Partey coming back. We still got potentially another player coming in on our midfield. The season is not over. I don't buy into the, well, this is it. We're not going to move up past 12th, or we're not in a relegation battle either. I'm gonna throw that one out there.
No, I know some people that wanted Wolves to beat Brighton today.
We're 3 points off Chelsea, who are in 6th right now. So we're 3 points off top 6.
People are
Positivity
talking
makes
about
me
Wolves
fucking
beating
sick.
Brighton today, so we can get distance on it.
No, it is. Yeah, it's not as bad now. It isn't as bad. It was. I think it was that sort of 10-game spell where we were really struggling for any kind of results, and it was hard to see us coming out of that.
And here's Chelsea coming up that was about to bury us.
Here,
and that's where it all changed.
here's one. So we've talked about that Newcastle squad, John.
Yeah.
And it being the sort of second string team, not the kids, not the youth, but the second string. Is Aubameyang in that side after recent weeks?
Yeah.
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 Mustafi and Chambers, they're healthy as well?
I mean, I'd love to see Ballon play,
Sorry,
but if he's not going to play, then Aubameyang has to play. Or
I agree with Mike. I agree with Mike on that one. I think that it's a weird thing to say, but at the same time, like you really got to be going a form. And I don't think Aubameyang had a bad game, but there comes a time where you need to give another player a chance to step up and do more right now, and it really is going to depend on what Arteta sees in training. And I'm just concerned that he would not pull the trigger on Martinelli because he's afraid of what benching the captain and doing that actually would do. The fear of him never regaining his confidence back is not something that's unreal. It's something that's very tangible and probably in the manager's mind. What? Aubameyang, yeah. So
I don't know if you have to worry that he's never going to gain it back. I mean, he, as Drew will tell you, he's been through these kinds of.
I'm not saying you should worry. I'm saying that if you all of a sudden demote him, quote unquote, then that might be a fear in the manager's mind. I'm not saying that it's actually going to be a driving fear that's going to determine his decision.
He had a calf injury.
Yeah, you can lie or whatever, but I guess when you're trying to figure out like what is the best position going forward, I imagine it would be very difficult to bench a player like Aubameyang. He's our captain, and to demote him. Although I agree with you that I think maybe that might be the best move. I just saw a stat, by the way. We were talking about like league positions. We were actually 1 point better off now than the same number of games last season. How about that? Isn't that weird? That doesn't feel right. But
this year's league is probably the craziest since 2016.
Yeah, but like think about the play who we played now too: Chelsea, Liverpool, Man United, all of that, and we're 1 point better off. Even though I don't know what that's. I'm trying to make sense of that. That's kind of a weird thing that I just.
It can't be that we had 1 point more last year at this point because
no, we have 1 more point now than we did the same point last season.
That's impossible.
It's not impossible. It's the case.
Maths.
After 17 games, we're 1 point off, 1 point higher than we were last season.
So what position were we in? What position were we in at New Year's last season? Were we in 12th or 13th?
That's a great question. I don't know that.
Mean, we had a tough, really rough start with Emery, so I probably 9th, 10th as well.
That's true. This was the games are behind. Like normally the halfway mark is Boxing Day and January, and that's not the case this season because we started a little bit later. So this was around the point in the season game wise that we sacked Emery, and we're dealing with the Lundberg situation.
Well, here's something as well to consider, lads.
Wow! So not only that, back to that stat. When we played 20 games this time last season, we had 24 points, and now after 17, we have 23 points. So not only are we
crazy.
Not only are we one better off, we still have we need to lose the next two and then draw one to equal the same points we had after 20 games last season.
Yeah, and the question I was going to throw in there, and anybody can jump in on this, is when we talk about sort of the prospect of us not being in Europe next season, do you buy into the whole thing of maybe the approach that Chelsea fans had a few years ago where they say that it could be beneficial to us to be out of Europe completely for a year, but I suppose that's okay when you're Chelsea, when you've got Abramovich there to put his hands in his pockets.
I think you answered your own question there. It's the latter part. I don't think that we can afford being out of Europe like Chelsea could.
Well, we have a lot of big names come out off of their contracts. So, I mean, I don't think we would be forced to sell anybody if considering, Kolasinac left, Luis, Mustafi's on a lot of money, right? Socrates on a lot of money.
$700,000 a week.
One
player that was number 10.
Oh,
$700,000 a week
that's amazing.
in wages.
Yeah. So I don't believe it's going to happen, but maybe potentially we could. It wouldn't be as bad if it was like a 1 year, because coincidentally those players are leaving.
Yeah.
Last season, after match week 17, which was the middle of December. Now, I mean, like I said, it's a little shifted. This was basically when Lundberg was coaching us. 17 games, 22 points, minus 3 goal difference, 10th place.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're
11.
Are we plus 1 goal difference now?
We are.
We were minus 3 before today, but I think we're plus.
We are 1. We are plus 1. Hey.
But
points.
I'm going to jump in here and ask one more because I'm going to have to go soon, gents. Yep. But John, this January transfer window is really being magnified given the current state of the club.
Yeah.
What do you want? What do you expect from the January transfer window?
I expect that we are going to see a lot of players out, like what Arteta said, that we're going to see a lot of outgoings and not that many incomings. I don't really see why that's not going to be the case. I don't think it's going to be like a fire sale or a fire buy over the January transfer window. I think it's going.
Has anyone ever used the word fire buy?
Yeah, I trademarked that right here, right now. That's my word now. Yeah, there you go. Ding. Thank you. So, look, I think
this is the official trademark.
There it is. It's legal now. It's legally
rich.
Nice. I think that we're going to see, like you said, we're going to see a lot of the wages kind of shore up more so. And I'm more interested in the players that are going to be leaving in January than the ones we're going to, sorry, Mike, you didn't agree, that are going to be coming in. I think we need to see a creative person in the midfield. So as long as we do that, I'm actually pretty happy. That's really kind of maybe that and like a number 8 kind of a role. As long as we make those 2 signings, I'm pretty okay going in to January. At least, I don't know. What do you think, Owen?
He's trying to throw it around while his kid's making noise.
He's muted.
I think you hit the nail on the head. I think it's
probably Mike's kid's making noise.
I think the emphasis needs to be on pushing some of that deadwood out. I think we've got a very bloated squad, and I think that's part of the reason we're hearing of such negativity within the dressing room, such unrest. I think when, like, say for example, you've got 30 players. You know, we all know that. Well, how many can make a match day squad, 18 players or something. It's that you're going to have almost 50% of your dressing room unhappy, and to have such big names within the dressing room, such well-respected names within the dressing room, and Ozil and Socrates, I think that they would have a lot of sway within some of the young kids and other players within the pitch. But I do think that we can't take away from what we need in the squad. I think that there is too much pressure maybe going to be put on Emile Smith-Rowe, even though I think he's got the potential to sort of carry that weight. I think it's unfair, which I think we're likely to see something like an Isco loan and maybe a Buendia, because he is and because I think he's only but he's an option on the wing as well. And apparently there's talk of a surprise exit. I'm not sure who that would be. There was talk of a surprise exit. I could only narrow it down to in my head, and maybe you can jump in and tell me whether I'm wrong. I think that Hector Ballon.
What about?
I would do either one of those for the right price.
What about Aubameyang?
I would take that. I would take
that would be pretty shocking. That would be a surprise.
No one's buying Aubameyang
when I think about that, I think about Mustafi, that used to feature heavily but hasn't been playing. I think of
would that be a surprise?
That's not really a surprise.
I guess who's clarifying it as a surprise, because
I guess that's the issue right there. John, just a question, because we're talking about January. Mike has, for me, an interesting question that he asked the other day that you weren't here.
Yeah, what's up?
If you, in January, you could either have 1 or 2 midfielders come in.
Oh, and if you got to leave, then I'll take it from here. But
no worries. No worries.
I don't want you to leave, but if you have to leave,
but just get the fuck out.
You don't have to go home.
You got to get the fuck out of here.
A midfielder in, or 2 midfielders in, or get Socrates, Ozil, Kolasinac, Mustafi, all of them out.
All of them.
8.
All of them. 8 of them total.
Yeah, I would get them out. And I think the squad has shown that they can actually not get relegated, which was the concern. So as long as they can not get relegated, and we can, even push for a European spot, the benefit of getting rid of the bloat in the squad outweighs any one player that we could sign apart from, the top 5 midfielders in the world, which is not realistic.
Do any of you know what I named our last podcast? Addition by subtraction, and that is what January is all about.
Yeah, it's a good way of putting it.
I think we could lose 6 players and play better. And injuries
100%
come into play. Like, look, if Pepe gets and he's not. I mean, look, if we could sell him for 50 million, I'd do it right now. If we could sell him for 40 million, I'd probably do it right now. But we're not, so we're going to keep him. And so if oh my God, I hate to say this, but if Saka was down for a few games and Pepe was down, Reece Nelson, I guess, comes into play. I mean, like Willian isn't the player that I would expect to play there, but like I just don't think that. I think we have enough depth, not proven depth, but the proven depth that we have is not good. So why not give an opportunity? Is Miguel Aziz good enough to play in the Premier League? No, but like if it was our third choice and it was February and we're playing against Newcastle, who I know we don't play in February, but like, and God forbid it came down to that versus signing somebody that we have to pay $100,000 a week for until he's 38 years old, then let's do that. And then the summer, we fucking build.
I don't want to sign players just for the sake of signing them. I want to sign for the right players.
The thing is a joke. I'm sorry to my friend in the chat who was talking about that, but no. No.
Addition by subtraction is an actually excellent way of putting it, and I think that and part of, besides just what's going to happen on the pitch, I think what Owen was alluding to earlier about how it's going to shore up this kind of confusion that's I think going on in the dressing room. One of these like intangible things I think is what is
right here.
Yeah, is what happens when you have all these players and these egos and personalities, these professional players at the end of the day, but players who want to play, and you have a bloated squad. There's going to be cliques. There's going to be people going, "Why am I not playing? It's not fair." They're human beings. It's just like any other job, even though that there's a lot of differences about what they do and what we do. But look, I think that getting rid of the dead weight, to answer your question, Mike, is the most important thing, and for the reason that Owen said, and the way that Mike characterized it as addition by subtraction, which is what I think it would be.
I mean, we've gotten rid of Kolasinac, and I'm not saying he's the problem. He's the root of the problem. Ozil will be gone soon. I'd love it to be January, but no. I mean, Willian and Luiz's power and what's his name? Kia Jarapshian's power wanes with every one of these guys that leaves the squad unfavored, and with every one of the young players that they don't control that comes into the squad and actually makes us perform. And
what do you think it is with Ozil? Like
that's a whole nother podcast.
No, like it boggles my head that
cult of personality and it serves in every single way. It serves against our best interest on the pitch. I don't want to get into how it started. I don't want to get into who's to blame, because you could.
Hey, Mike, when it started, who would you blame? No, it just boggles my head that at his age, honestly, he could go and do bits.
Arsenal's done so many things wrong when it comes to Mesut Ozil, but there's no question that at this point, he just needs to be as far away from this team as possible.
Ignoring the club, just on a sporting level. For the individual, why not go to back, if not back to Spain, because there's 2 teams that could handle them, right? But go to like Italy.
Because he doesn't want to play football.
That's really sad, dude. But I believe it. Don't get me wrong.
He doesn't want to play football, and he doesn't want to be made to play football. Those are the 2 things about Mesut Ozil right now.
But these all these bits
of have to figure that out in 6 months, but he doesn't have to figure it out.
All these bits of business are beneficial in terms of that. What you were saying there, Mike. The likes of Mesut Ozil. Soon his buddy Mustafi is going to be gone. His buddy Kolasinac is already gone. In terms of Willian, David Luiz will be gone soon.
And the Tierney Martinelli Saka energy just becomes the one that controls our club, and that's what I want to be controlling our club right now. Not the veteran will tell you what this is all about stuff. I want the young, naive, why
89.
can't we turn our back into what
We're
we
full circle.
why can't we do that? You know, like, I mean, maybe I know I'm naive and I'm young. I'm very young, but like, you know, why can't the tyranny attitude and the Martinelli work rate and the Saka precociousness, why can't that be what Arsenal's all about over the next 10 years?
I think we're closer to that than fans realize. I know that when people talk and are being critical of the club, which rightfully so, they have, you know, all the right to be critical because we've done some real bonehead moves. Next summer, in my opinion, it's going to be a massive culture change. All those players from with that, and ignoring the board, I'm seeing all those players with that mentality of that locker room are going to be gone. So now if you're looking at the squad, A, we're you know, it's a smaller squad, but B, it's the Tierney's, the Sakas of the world, the Martinellis, right?
Those guys want to die on the pitch.
Yes, and that's going to be the majority of the locker room. So, look, man, I talking about, I'm going to go really far back here when it comes to the Invincibles, right? You know, I've always had the discussion where people say, is it the manager that established the culture or the players? I'm a believer it's the players. So little by little, as those players left and we saw who were replacing those players, the culture died. But look at what George Graham did with players. You can't just say it's the players. The manager has to either look at who he played or die on that sword. Mike, look who he played. He brought up kids from the academy, right? I mean that's the bulk of them were, right? And he got rid of all the, at that point in time, big contracts. The only difference between back then and now, I can't remember when it was, but
the academies and from other clubs that were going to fight for the badge instead of you know, the Charlie Nicholases and
the Invincibles were a perfect storm because Arsene Wenger inherited that famous defense and then he added some flair to that core.
You can't credit that to any one person.
No, it's definitely the managers. And you know what? And the people who like to kind of take Wenger's touch away from what the Invincibles were able to do, and not saying that that's what you're doing, Mike, but really underestimate Wenger's impact on that team and what he was able to get out of them. And, you know, he might have had struggled in the years later, but you got to look at what Wenger was still able to do with some of these squads. Getting the Champions League, getting as far as the Champions League, I mean, getting top 4 in the Premier League for every single season he's ever been here. I mean, these are and look at the last time we've gotten like extremely far in the Champions League. Go look at that squad. It's like unreal what he was able to get out of some of these players.
It's only evident now.
Yeah, it's only evident now about how difficult what he did was. But again, I'm not saying that you were kind of trying to minimize what he did, but at the same time, I think there needs to be a balance. And like Owen said, the Invincibles was just a perfect storm.
I think the youth that we have now is a bird in the hand that we fell into because we have made so many mistakes with personnel, both in the youth team but more in the senior team. Yet we still have 4 to 6 players who a year ago were only playing for the U23s.
Yeah, but do you think it's a coincidence that the players that are making us, like you were joking about, we have our Arsenal back on, you put it on your Twitter, but do you think it's a coincidence that the kind of play that we're seeing from these younger players in the drive are coming from players that existed in an era where we were developing that style of play, and that's what the norm was at Arsenal? And that I feel like when you're looking at some of these players like Ozil and this and that, and like these players that came in kind of lost sight of that a little bit. And then with the manager changes and with kind of like this uncertainty as to what actually Arsenal played like as a team, that we're starting to get a resurgence. And obviously it might be a little early now, but it's starting to at least see like the kind of seeds of a resurgence of that style of play. Is it a coincidence that it's coming from those players who know what the Arsenal way is?
No, I don't think it's a coincidence at all. I don't
think so either.
I think it's a need, and we're starting to see an awakening that the senior levels of our club are realizing what they have, and I mean, no one's ever wanted to, wait for the next youth player to come through. We've always wanted to sign Lewandowski, but like it's more apparent now than it ever has been before that we have some, especially with the recognition of what our financial situation is and what it needs to be over the last 4 or 5 years and the way that we've absolutely just shit the bed on player trading, that we need to rely on our youth players more. And I mean, I'm not ready to claim victory over saying that I was saying when Freddie Lundberg was the manager that we should not start anyone on our team other than Leno over age 25. We should just fucking blow the whole thing up. Aubameyang and Leno and all the other 20-something-year-olds under 25 should play. And all those, I mean, that was like, it was an exaggeration, but at this point, it is no longer an exaggeration.
Mm-hmm.
We have a club where, like Whitney Houston famously said, the children are the future, and we need to treat these guys as assets, and in the case of Ballon, sign them. And I'm just going all over the place at this point, as you know. But I just think we have so much promise. I mean, there's so much to be excited about. And a year and 2 months ago, I did not feel that way.
Yeah,
it's amazing how fast it changes, huh?
It does. I mean, it does. And unless you have not to turn this in a different direction, but unless you have a predisposed reason to root for one outcome or the other, I hate being as upset as I was a month ago, and I love being as happy as I am now. And that's all. That's why we're doing a post-game podcast when we don't normally do post-game podcast. Because I watched that game today, and I was so excited. I wanted to talk to my friends about how great we are.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that. And I know, my friends, and Mike Hernandez. And I know that it's just one game against a bottom-dwelling team that could probably kick the shit out of most teams in La Liga.
Contactual though.
But like, isn't that what supporting your club is about? If you can't talk about the positives when the positives are actually occurring, then what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
We are winning the treble. We are winning the treble.
Well, obviously, and that includes, as Mike said earlier this week, that includes the Champions League this season.
Yeah. This season we're going to find a way to, after we beat Benfica, we're going to be promoted into the Champions League, and then we're going to win that.
We're going to be the first team in history.
We're going to win that.
I'll tell you what, with how wacky this league is this year, to say it was only West Bromwich. I just saw that in my. I'm like,
it's champagne.
I almost said West Ham. So close. Listen, they tied up Liverpool last game, right? So I understand that they're in relegation battle, but they didn't do to us what they did to Liverpool for whatever reason. We came at them with a little bit more intent. So I don't know. Hey, dude, a win is a win. I'll tell you what. I find it very difficult to pick
about how Wolves was battering Brighton and we barely beat them.
Here's something again. I'm not making an excuse for the reactionary people on Twitter, and I actually put a thing up about this the other day. Is that I think the thing is when we look at Arsenal this season in particular, and sort of the tail end of last season, is that with everything that's going on in the world in terms of COVID and the world being shut down and people being out of work and, furloughed, working from home, whatever, life's been pretty borderline miserable for a lot of people. And football, not only in these circumstances, but in all time, is an escape from reality and escape from your day-to-day life. And you go and you invest so much time and money and stuff into that. And I think that the circumstances have made everything heightened. So for us to be hitting probably the worst season in recent history of our club in this particular time makes it so much worse for everybody. And in terms of people falling off the wagon with Arteta, and people have enough shit going on emotionally as it is, to let alone their football club be fucking in free fall. And I think that goes for the positives as much as it goes for the negatives. So when people say that you're overhyping a win against West Brom, of course you are, because everything's been fucking miserable, and this is the that we've got.
You shouldn't put this win on Arteta's back either.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not in favor of saying this is Arteta's masterpiece. It's the fucking players. The same players that were letting him down 6 weeks ago, except it's not the same players necessarily, but it's the same concept. So like, I mean,
he's the one playing the players.
Arteta just needs to not steer the ship into a fucking ditch right now.
Yeah, it's a low bar. I'll give you that. It's a low bar.
And
Play the left back at left back. Play the right back.
And I'm comfortable with that low bar.
Don't play Willian.
As long as he doesn't like steer the ship off the fucking. I mean, and it started with COVID, and the Brazilian thing, and the Aubameyang's fake injury, and all that. But like, he's making some decisions now, whether they're forced or not, that makes sense. And if he continues to do that through January, and if we get rid of some of these guys and just like lighten up the team, then I mean, why wouldn't I support him? I mean, I've gone to the cliff, I've looked over the cliff, and I've walked back from it a little bit.
Are you choosing to believe the whole Luis Willian Mole thing, Mike?
Yeah.
Or
I am.
you're going with it? Because I from when that's
I know what we saw today. We saw William get in the game. We saw Louise hugging.
Yeah. See, before you go down this rabbit hole, boys, I'm gonna jump off the train, before shit gets real crazy.
Pleasure, Owen.
So, lads, pleasure talking to you, and I'll see you on Monday, Mike.
Of course,
Monday.
Absolutely.
Or that Mike.
Monday night, 10 o'clock.
Me on Friday on yours.
That Mike. I don't know when I'm doing a podcast next. Let me think, and I'll get back to you. But cheers to everybody in the live chat too. It was a good laugh. Anyway, right. See you later, boys. Enjoy your rabbit hole.
There, Owen.
I actually have to jump off soon too, guys.
We're gonna end
when that news broke by a Twitter account, mind you. We saw Willian and Luis play at the weekend, so that's what threw me off. And
what do you mean? What do you mean?
Well, when the news broke that they might be potentially the moles, and you know that they're the ones out for a death, so to say.
Louise was an unused sub, but
no, they both played versus Everton, didn't they?
Mm-mm.
Louise hasn't been in the squad for 2 weeks.
No.
Okay. See. All right. Yeah, and you know, one thing I was noticing that when people, at least on a footballing level, when they were criticizing William, I saw them roping Luis in, and I didn't quite get that because for the longest time, William was kind of our best defender for a really long time.
No, you're absolutely right. He did start. He did play.
He did, right?
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
What?
Wait, that can't be right.
I'm pretty sure he started.
Louise does not play
Because Mike, you and I were contacting. We said, well, I can't wait to see the lineup, and like if they both start, you know, it's going to be crazy. And I'm pretty sure both of them started that game, and then they went away because they weren't feeling well
in the last 4 or 5 games, 3 or 4 games.
Well,
yeah. So Luis has been
came back after his massive concussion, but
yeah. So yeah, I don't know. That's a weird. I still don't. I'm not saying it's a negative. I'm not saying it wasn't him, but I mean, he's on the bench. I wouldn't be surprised to see him play.
Well,
he totally played. He played. He started.
Yeah.
At this point, who could it be? I mean, like if he had really just banished the guy, then there's no one that it could be other than like Mainsley. Although he did play today. I mean, if it were me, I would have. I just think I'm convinced. I'm sorry. I think Louise is a bad apple. I think William's a bad apple.
Hey, sometimes you just get a gut feeling about something.
Maybe I'm. You know, I mean, Andy would tell me this if he were here today. If Andy were here today, he would tell me that that I just buy into too much bullshit, and you know that they're fine and they're probably the leaders of the team. And he's probably right. But I just don't need to see it anymore.
All right, I'm gonna enable this behavior for a moment.
But Andy,
did you see Saka go? The first thing he did was run up and hug David Luiz in the time on the sideline.
I did see that.
Did you?
I did.
So what do you make of that?
I think Saka needs to. No, I'm just coming. No, I did see that, and I was like, Look, Saka is an everyman. I mean, he's the man right now. So if Luis wants to get close to him, of course Luis is going to get close to him.
You don't turn down a Saka hug.
Spit in his face.
And you were making fun of my tinfoil hat about these Brazilians.
I don't think, dude. Honestly, I'm more inclined to think it's Ozil than Luis and Willian at this point.
It all starts with. All right. So this is all right. So if anyone
There is no Pepe Silvia.
If anyone watching the podcast, we're at the 100-minute mark. Now we're just going to get into conspiracy theories AF.
Mike is drunk, and we are talking conspiracy theories. That's where we're at.
We're going to do that. Of course it's Ozil, but before that, no. Anything Saka does, if Saka chooses to hug someone, and I love that person, because Saka is the most mature. He's an Arsenal legend at this point. All right. There's a guy in an Arsenal America chat that said that and I'm embarrassed by this guy, and I wanted to fight him, and then he said no, but like he said,
is that how fighting works? Yeah, you want to fight?
Yeah,
no, all
right.
right.
An offer? Yeah.
It's how fighting works with Jews.
Okay.
But like because we always have to ask permission, but he's like Saka is an overrated. He's the most overrated Arsenal player. And he never gets stuck in. And if you look at his stats, he has no assists or goals.
I mean, that's demonstrably wrong.
With any of his touches from inside the box.
That's a ridiculous stat.
He was
that's
like
the dumbest thing I've ever heard, maybe.
He has the most I'm looking at what touches mean.
Okay.
And
I now believe theory about getting Luis rolling into to get people from Brazil.
Hold on, Mike. He has the most touches of any Arsenal player inside the opponent's box, and from those touches, he has no goals and assists. So his point was, apparently, we're going to ignore his crosses. We're going to ignore goals.
It was outside the box.
Outside the box.
Ignore the fact that he gets stuck in more than whatever.
Well,
you want to define that?
No. What you just said is incredible because his next comment was, and I'll bring this up on the screen as soon as
Can you bring up Danny's comment that you are the quote Arsenal Alex Jones?
No,
that's awesome.
I hate Alex Jones. No, I don't like that. But his next comment was, okay, so when have you ever seen him get stuck in?
Every single game, pretty much every game.
I'm like, what do you mean? Like Alan Smith had one yellow card in his career and it was for dissent. So is he not?
No, also doesn't get stuck in. Kieran Tierney, come on, get out of here.
Well, Kieran Tierney would.
No, it's ridiculous. It's a bad take. It's just a bad take. That's it.
It was awful. I think he was trolling, but like my troll.
I hope so. I really genuinely hope so
for his sake, because that's a very bad take. Look,
I'm gonna say if you're adding players to a transfer list, I'm pretty sure Saka and or Martinelli would be last on that list for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So I think he's just.
So who on our squad, if a bid came in January, if a bid came in January
for Saka, no.
Who? No, not for Saka, not for Martinelli. They're not sellable. 100 million, I wouldn't take.
Okay.
But who that you can see contributing to our club, not the guys we want to get rid of and what we would love to be able to sell them for.
Lacazette, Bellerin,
you would normally say I would like him to be on our club starting at the beginning of next season.
Mm-hmm.
But if we got a bid for him of X amount, I would sell him.
Maitland-Niles, Bellerin, I think Aubameyang and Lacazette are in there.
Give me the amounts.
Amounts. Bellerin's at least 35 million. At least. So
you're not necessarily saying that Bellerin should be sold for 35
No,
million.
you just said
right.
If
I'm clear.
A good enough bid.
Who is not irreplaceable on our side? I think Bellerin is not irreplaceable. I think Aubameyang is not irreplaceable. I think Lacazette's not irreplaceable. Xhaka is not irreplaceable. And most people would say he's extremely replaceable. That's a different conversation. But
what would you sell Xhaka for? Like if a bid came in and it got rid of the wages.
So
between
between 25 and 35. anywhere there. I mean, we're
Do you
talking
think
about
he'll fetch that much, John?
that's what I'm putting him on the
So
market for.
I have to ask you if a bid came in from Hertha Berlin for 22 million for Xhaka.
I think that's fair.
I would swap him for Guendouzi. Can we do a swap deal?
Yeah, but I'm just because I'm valuing him at 25 doesn't mean that doesn't mean I'm not gonna negotiate that. Like, what do you think this is? Like, how are you gonna ask me a question like that and then be like, well, you said 25? No, I mean,
because I'm not the actual negotiator. We're not actually.
Neither am I. So just because I say 25 doesn't mean I wouldn't be also open to 22. It wasn't like a line in the sand.
You need to play the negotiation game with me.
I'm not. I'm just saying that I think that there are players that are not irreplaceable. Xhaka's one of them. If a 22 million pound offer came in for Xhaka next season, and we can use that to strengthen a midfielder, and maybe even though I think that Xhaka has some good qualities, he's certainly a limited player, and he's certainly especially not a particularly fast footballer. So there are upgrades that we can make over Xhaka, and if we can make a smart decision, I don't think he's irreplaceable. Is my point. Versus a Saka or a Martinelli, these players you cannot get rid of. These are Tierney. Tierney is irreplaceable. We cannot replace Tierney. Partey right now, as much as he hasn't played, I know that he's going to be irreplaceable for us.
But would you sell him if some club came in for 90 million pounds?
Who?
Tierney.
No, I wouldn't. He's a young. I would not sell.
He's too young, man. That's how I can.
I'm not saying I would. I'm just
no.
Like this is how some clubs build their dynasty. I mean, Liverpool. I mean, look, they would have never sold. They wouldn't sell Trent, whatever the fuck his name is.
Alexander.
They wouldn't sell those guys. So I'm not making a comparison directly, but I'm like, sometimes you got to take an absurd profit off of somebody and take the risk that you're going to. So I'm not, the takeaway from this should not be Mike wants to sell Kieran Tierney.
That's where the Aubameyang, the Lacazette sale, that's those kind of sales. That's like your Coutinho sale in a way.
I think with Liverpool,
that's where the Nketiah sales comes in because those are the ones.
That's part of it. But remember, when you look at Liverpool and what they really did in terms of the rebuild, it was the sale of Coutinho that really, really put them on the next level.
Right. So Suarez.
And Suarez as well, but I think more so the latter, more so the former.
Definitely more so the former.
Yeah. And we have, I don't know about players that can fetch that kind of money, but like Aubameyang is a serious player. Lacazette is a player that I think right now, we've already talked about it earlier on the podcast, is at the highest point of his value, in my opinion, for his career. So if we're ever going to sell these players, then now's the time. And the question was, are there any players that are, that you would sell? And I think that there are some that are not irreplaceable. And that's kind of where he's already left. So I'm talking to myself, but
no, John,
I'm talking to you, Mike,
because you mentioned Bellerin. It's either going to be one of Mainsley or Bellerin, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just, if Bellerin stays, I cannot see Mainsley sticking around.
Yeah,
I think he's going to hit that Martinez fence, and he's going to say, "Hey, dude, I want to play." And I'm split because the way I look at it, like neither of them are the perfect right back. We got one in Bellerin that's incredibly on offense, but is shaky in defense. Vice versa, you got Mainsley that's way better in defense, a little bit shaky in his final passes, right? So it's one or the other. But
it's not one or the other. It's clear who needs to be sold.
You think so? But what, Bellerin?
He wasn't listening. He just said that. I think he just.
No.
Okay.
Okay.
I thought you were just trolling.
Now, Mike, is it Bellerin for you because of quality, or because the whole Mainsley thing and him being English, and we were talking about Bretix earlier?
Well, if we need to, if we really put our heads down to it and think about player trading, and if we don't want to be sentimental anymore, and I'm starting to write down. I'm putting pen to paper right now. If we want to try to get some value out of some players and stop like just shitting the bed in the player trading market and losing, buying Luiz and selling him for nothing, buying, extending Abba and selling him for nothing. We need to sell Bellerin. We need to sell some other people. Who was the other person we were talking? I mean,
is Cedric going to stick around then? Like, if you think about it, if we're talking about right backs, right? We're talking about Mainsley and we're talking about Bellerin.
You have to sell Bellerin. I mean, look, if you can get $5 million for Cedric, I don't really understand what that was all about in the first place. Maybe he's fine to be a second choice right back. I don't want Mainsley to be the replacement for Bellerin. I want Mainsley to be someone who can play in that position, but also like save us from having to spend a tremendous amount of money. We need another center midfielder, but we don't need two because we have Mainsley. Sell Bellerin, sell Lacazette. And I hate to say this after probably his best game of the season, but I think it means more when you do say it at that point. Sell him because we need to be thinking about the next 8 years, not the next 2 years or 1 year. And I'm not saying sell Lacazette because I think Balogun's ready, but I think we need to give it an opportunity. There's one more I think that we could sell. I mean, Xhaka, if we could get anything for him, I would sell.
I think that's undervaluing him a little bit, but I can see the logic.
Well, I don't think it's undervaluing him. I think it's valuing
anything.
I would like to sell him for money. I think it would undervalue to say I'd like to cancel his contract, which is what I feel about Socrates. Socrates, what I
mean by undervaluing is I think by saying that you can get rid of him for anything, even like some diminished amount, rather not necessarily cancel his contract, values him to the extent that I think he actually does have an affirmative value in the market.
He does, and we better take advantage of it before we ruin it all. Because we ruined everyone else's value.
Xhaka for me falls between the 20 and 25 range, and Pepe between 30 and 35.
I mean,
I would sell Pepe for anything over 30 right now. And I must look, I'm in the financial world.
I would too.
Sunk costs worth chasing.
I'm 100% with you on that. 100% with you.
So I mean, you want to sell him in 2 years when he's worthless?
Yeah.
Could he come good? Could he be? I'm a big proponent of Pepe being more talented than he's showing right now, but I'm not so sure he can discover it here.
Right.
And,
that's fair.
And so we need to start reloading, and we need to start writing off sunk costs like corporations do.
Yep.
And Bellerin, Lacazette, Xhaka, Pepe, Reece Nelson. And there's probably going to be one painful one. We're probably going to have to consider
El Neni.
A ridiculous offer for.
That's great. I mean, that was great timing on that one.
What if someone comes in and offers $60 million for Smith Rowe?
I think is more realistic than taking $90 million for a Tierney.
I know this is all ridiculous.
You know what, guys? You know what I?
What would you do? Because you can't just constantly say these players are off the market, because that's how teams get good. Is they buy low and they sell high.
You know what this is going to be out there a little, but what I see in Martinelli and Rowe is Alexis Sanchez and Ozil without the ego. And
I can get behind that.
And then
David. I don't know where Andy is. Listen, my job here is to enable Mike and so it's the opposite of Andy right now.
I'm a passenger. I just go with the flow.
Andrew didn't like the narrative of how shit Arsenal was all the time, but now that we've won 3 games, I think you may or may not see Andy on Monday night, and I think it's leaning towards May. So Andy might be coming back. This is by no means is the original, the OGs of this podcast over yet.
He's getting registered in the squad again.
We love each other more than ever. This is not don't call it a comeback. We've been here for years.
All right, guys. I do got to get off though, guys. I do appreciate the chat.
That's probably a good point. A good spot to end it at. This was a win that we needed to win, and we
won.
We won,
and we won well.
Mm-hmm.
And we won by a lot, and we're Arsenal.
Yep.
Do we have our Arsenal back? I may or may not be ready to say that, but we got a couple of exciting weeks ahead with an FA Cup third round that we obviously need to win if we want to keep our FA Cup dominance alive, and then a couple of winnable games in the league. We could be fourth, we could be second, we could be ninth, we could be 17th, but you'll always be first in my heart. See how I did that? I'm a broadcaster. If you've joined us, thank you for that. David, I'll talk to you later. And
legendary pineapple Ballon pizza.
John, Mike, Owen came to us in like, how did Moses come down the aisle like in the Nile, like he was like in a little basket, and Owen came to us, and we're like, can you?
John's just gonna cut out any second now.
We're like, can you just take over our podcast? So anyway, Owen, thank you. John, always great to see you after a win. It's not great to see you after we lose.
Only after wins with John.
Apparently, that's my thing now. I'm only coming after wins. It just so happens we've been winning. What can I do?
My thing is, I don't give a shit about our podcast unless we win, and then if I do, we got a podcast.
I just want to sulk when we lose. I don't want to deal with it.
Fair enough.
I don't want to get on the air and talk.
It ruins my week. I just want to forget that Arsenal exists.
4-day nap when we lose, and I'm not afraid to say that. So look, you will only be seeing this kind of content when we win. So sorry. And Mike, thanks for joining us. You've been lovely, even though we've exposed you for not understanding Spanish.
Yeah, that's what it is.
This podcast is about exposing people, ourselves. We love you. We're going to win everything that is on offer, and Arsenal are the greatest